Alright, if you like things that are cheap, extremely oddly satisfying, have historically backed reliability and quality, and once again I'm going to mention that they're nice and cheap, then let's check out these toolboxes I just bought.
I picked these up off of Amazon Prime, so it took 2 days to get here. Let's open this box up and see what we got. These toolboxes are from the brand Trusco, which was founded in 1959 in Japan. The word Trusco comes from Trust and Company for the company's commitment to honest business practices. And since they've been around since 1959, they're doing something right. Going from smallest to largest, we'll start with the T15. All these toolboxes come in these nice cardboard sleeves that are marked up really cool. And they're stamped out of one single piece of steel. And the Trusco emblem is stamped really cool on them, and also made in Japan. All the lettering is super crisp. A super big, oddly satisfying, and quality aspect of these toolboxes are how they latch. They have these two little teeth on them, and they snap together really nicely. And just to offer some scale, I took my old iPhone and it fit in it perfectly, but my iPhone 13 is too large to fit into it. The bottoms of their smaller toolboxes have these protrusions coming out of the bottom, and it allows them to be able to sit up just a little bit off of the surface that you're sitting on. And they also have these indentations on the lid, which allows the toolboxes to be able to stack together if they're the same size. How I've been utilizing this toolbox is using it to store earplugs, and I put it in my center console for work. Moving up the Trusco food chain, we got the T150 next, which is the big brother, or the fatter version, of the T15. Out of all the toolboxes I did order, the T150 didn't have the satisfying click whenever you closed it, but it still had everything else. It had the Made in Japan emblem on the bottom, and also the Trusco on the top. And here I brought out the T15 again to show how you can stack these up. The indentation goes into the protrusion, and it's a really nice way to keep them stacked and not have them sliding all over the place. Next up we got the T190 MBK. And I actually ordered 2 of these because I really like the size of them and they just looked super satisfying. I just had to order 2 of them. Whenever you get to this size, the locking mechanism is on the side instead of on the top. But you still have that satisfying click. It's still rolling with the protrusions and indentations on the lid and bottom, which allows them to stack up nicely. And for those of you wondering, my iPhone 13 fits perfectly. The small fries are out of the way. Now let's get into the creme de la creme of Trusco toolboxes. Starting with the T320SV. This is definitely more of what you think of when you're thinking toolbox. And it has a lot more room inside than the other toolboxes that we've looked at thus far. My iPhone 13 fits perfectly long ways, but not so much on the short ways. I believe due to the fact that this toolbox is a lot larger and more stuff's going to be in it, they went away from the teeth locking feature and went to this latch. And it has a toolbox handle on the top. So this is definitely more of a toolbox when you're thinking toolbox. On the bottom, the protrusions are a lot wider and don't stick out as much, but they're still serving the same purpose. So the 320SV gives you a lot of room, but if you're looking for even more room, then look no further than the Trusco Y350. I think when you think in your head, small handheld toolbox, you're going to think of the Y350. Heck, I mean, it's stamped toolbox on the top of it, so it's definitely a toolbox. Has Made in Japan stamped on the lid, as well as Trusco that's underneath the handle on top. Size-wise, it's the next step up from the 320SV, and my iPhone actually goes in both ways, long ways and short ways, which is pretty neat. We're sticking with the latch, and just like on the 320SV, it actually has a spot where you can put a lock on it and lock anything up. So I think we're all in agreement. These toolboxes look phenomenal. But how do these things actually perform? Let's put these to the test and fill them up with something.
So using the standard unit of measurement of 22 LR bullets, let's see how many will fit in these toolboxes.
22 LR bullets come in at about 6 or 7 cents a round if you order them in bulk. And since I have a bunch of these sitting around, I figured this would be the perfect thing to throw into these toolboxes and just see how many we can put in each container. And just like we did before, let's start off from smallest and go to the biggest.
Alright, first up, let's do the T15. Next up, T150.
I will definitely admit that this is an unorthodox way to measure volume or how much something can hold, but I had a lot of these on hand, so I decided to use them. Once each toolbox was filled all the way up, I took all of them and dumped them into their own individual piles. With the payload of each toolbox piled before it, let's pull out the old measuring cup and see how much each one holds. With the smallest being the T15, it held 1 cup. Next up, the T150 held 2, and a couple stragglers. The T190 ended up holding 3.5 cups of shells, and once the 3.5 cups were put in here, this ended up completing one of the tubs, and each tub holds 1,400 rounds. And speaking in the measurements of just tubs, the 320 SV ended up holding up all these bullets here, and that was 1,400, and I just decided to throw it all into the 350. So wrapping up this little storage experiment, the Y350 Trusco toolbox is able to hold all of the contents that the Trusco T320 SV is, plus it has about another quarter's worth of space. So I completely filled up the Y350 with these 22 shells, ended up being a little bit over 26 pounds. So if you're concerned any bit about like weight or how much these things can hold, I just filled them up all the way with a bunch of metal and steel and brass. So if you were filling this up with what it's supposed to be filled up with, which is tools, anything from pliers, screwdrivers, hammers, anything, I mean, this thing is definitely going to be able to hold up to anything you put in it. Keeping the ball rolling on how I actually use these toolboxes in real life, let's head on to my truck. I work in a metal fabrication shop every day, and I carry certain tools with me, and I just end up throwing them in my truck, and it kind of gums it up and makes it look dirty. Just a tape measure, a knife, some safety glasses, and gloves primarily. I found the 320 SV to be the perfect option in order to keep everything organized. Everything fits in there nicely, and it keeps my truck a little bit cleaner. And I'm also able to grab all these tools, put them on in the parking lot, put them in my pockets, or I can just grab the whole toolbox and bring it into work. So that's my spiel on these Trusco toolboxes. They can keep your life a lot more organized, they don't break the bank, and they look pretty darn cool. Hit the link in my bio if you want to order one, it really helps out the channel. If you guys enjoyed the video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. God bless, and as always, have a good one.